This is Kissing Frogs, a podcast about relationships and how they change us. I'm your host, Dr. Molly Burritz, a clinical psychologist specializing in relationships and women's mental health. With my guests, we'll share personal, heartfelt stories about love and loss, from the first spark to the messy middle and whatever comes next. So let's get into today's episode. Hello, lovers, and welcome to Kissing Frogs. I'm so happy to be able to help heal your heartbreak today, because if you are someone who has gone through a breakup or is going through a breakup, then today's guest is for you. Today we have Kendra Allen, the breakup coach, and she is the author of the Breakup Workbook. She is also the host of Heal Your Heartbreak, and she's a specialist in helping people just like you overcome their heartbreak and find a better path forward in their lives. She is here today to share her story of her first love, which was a toxic relationship where she really lost herself. There was a big age gap in the relationship. So if that's something that speaks to you, like it does to me in my history, then you definitely want to tune into this. She takes us through it all, the good, the bad, and especially the ugly. So I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did, and that there's something in it for you. Kendra Allen. Kendra Allen, welcome to Kissing Frogs.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
We're so glad to have you. And I love, especially having relationship experts come on the show, because I'm one of those relationship experts that talks about my personal life and my relationship experiences. And not everybody does that. And you have helped so many people. I mean, you have 100K plus followers on Instagram, and you have your new book, The Breakup Workbook. Will you just tell the listener a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was such wild timing. I think I was probably 6 months pregnant, and I got I got an email from a publisher about doing a workbook. And, I was like, the timing couldn't be worse, but I, had to take advantage of this. I mean, that was always my goal, that's always been my goal, is to put out really actionable tips and things for people to do when going through a breakup, because we have all these like inspirational quotes and stuff, which feel good to read for a second, but I just felt like there was this gap of, what do I actually do? I've always been such an action-oriented person. Yeah. So to be able to say, okay, go through these exercises, there's literally checklists for you to be able to go through and actually have like an action plan to go through a breakup.
And you're here primarily to talk about a relationship from long ago, really when you were 18 years old. So I'm imagining this is your first real adult relationship.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So as we think about this, can you sort of drop us in to your life at that time? Tell us a little bit about what your world was like and who you were at 18.
I feel like everyone feels really lost when they're teenagers, but in my case, I definitely felt really lost, very low self-esteem. I've been sober for almost 13 and a half years now. So that was in full force at that time. So I carried a lot of shame and guilt and had, I was doing really well in school, but also drinking till blackout almost every weekend. And so I feel like all of that kind of came together. And then I met Rick, who was my ex, and I felt like it was just like a guide that I needed at the time. And I really wanted to be an adult. I really felt like I had this thing in my mind that once I hit 30, I would have self-esteem again. I wouldn't have a drinking problem anymore. Everything would be figured out. And this person came into my life, and I was like, maybe this is how I can be an adult and feel put together and feel good about myself. And I think that was the catalyst that started that relationship.
Okay. So he held sort of a promise for you. He was an invitation to adulthood.
Yes.
And adulthood for you meant self-esteem, stability, relief from your substance use.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why did he represent adulthood to you? What did you see in him, or what were his characteristics or traits that drew you in?
I mean, the age was a big one. So when I was 18, I think I met him when he was 29.
Okay. So big age gap.
Big age gap. And
at a very, an 11-year age gap when you're 18 years old is a different situation than maybe an 11-year age gap when you're, I don't know, 30.
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And on top of that, he also held this position of authority. I struggled with my weight throughout high school, and my mom signed me up for Jenny Craig, which I'm not even sure they're around anymore, and he was the like counselor that I had at Jenny Craig. So that added a whole other, so I'm walking, I mean, if I think about it now, I'm walking in very insecure
and vulnerable
and very vulnerable. And then I meet this person and, it starts being flirty, and then it moves to, oh, I'm a personal trainer too. We can work out together. And then it snowballs from there. But yes, it was just a perfect storm of, okay, here I can help you in more ways than one.
Yeah.
And it started with that, him being up on a pedestal.
Yeah.
He was the adult. He knew better. He had been in serious relationships before. Yeah. And I had this idea that he was going to show me what that all meant.
Yeah. And probably that he was going to take care of you.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. You were in a really vulnerable state. He was in a position of authority. He didn't have a formal degree or certification, but he was like a counselor of sorts.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Nothing that was illegal or professionally unethical, but definitely set up a relationship dynamic where you were under his wing, under his care.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then he was so charming at first. And there was, the first 6 months, it was like, I felt like I was in this fairy tale. And I remember, bragging to my friends of we would go on weekend trips and all these things. And then, as with a lot of relationships like that, there came this switch that happened. And then it all went downhill from there.
And so, you described this 6-month period as kind of a whirlwind. It sounds like there was some adventure. There were trips. I mean, as an 18-year-old, fresh out of high school, you probably hadn't even been on a weekend trip by yourself, let alone a trip with a boyfriend.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And, we were, in the beginning, we would be drinking together and we'd go out to like a bar and sit at the bar and have wine. And
even though you were 18.
Even though I was 18. Yes. Okay. So we just figured out a way. And I think because he was older, and I think I started dressing older than I was and started acting older than I was. So so I felt like that adult. Okay, I can sit at a bar and drink wine. I'm not chugging vodka from a plastic bottle with friends on the weekends. So it did start giving me that promise of adulthood and that everything was going to be better.
Yeah. And even though you thought adulthood was tied to sort of getting relief from your substance use difficulties, here you were as an adult in a bar, drinking underage with someone who's participating with you, maybe sort of enabling it.
Yes.
Unknowingly. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, yes, enabling it probably for a time. And then, I could hold my drinking together for short periods of time, but there always came, a time when it went too far.
Okay.
And so then it became this, oh, you have a drinking problem, so I need to help you. That's when the control started.
Okay.
Of you need me so you don't get in trouble, so you don't do these things. And so I think that was the premise that the control started under.
Okay. So he became not just your counselor, but then your manager.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
He ended up taking on a lot of roles. I mean, it really, and now that I've talked to so many people that, are experts in narcissistic personality disorder and those kind of relationships, he followed the playbook exactly. It's wild how all of these relationships end up so similar. And now looking back at it, I'm like, wow, it really went step by step until all of a sudden I was with him alone, essentially.
You talk about a playbook for someone with NPD, narcissistic personality disorder. Now, that term is used really wildly these days.
Too much.
Right?
Yeah.
Too much. But what you're describing, you've done the work and is really aligned with
Yeah.
NPD and the pattern that comes up. Tell us a little bit about that pattern. How did it start now with retrospect?
So I think it's so crazy. I remember the moment that the switch flipped, and at that point I was still in contact with my friends from high school,
Mhm.
and I had a really bad night drinking, and
Okay.
I was texting with a guy friend, and it probably, like, looking back, it probably was a little bit flirtatious, but he saw the text message, and it was like I saw his face turn. It was like he was like a different person.
Mm.
And after that moment, it was, I can look at your phone. I don't like these friends that you're hanging out with. These are bad influences on you. You need to follow my lead so I can protect you. And
Mhm.
I carried a lot of shame from that point of my drinking from the past. So I did feel like I didn't want to do those things. He wasn't the solution, but at that time that felt like a
It
solution.
felt helpful.
It felt
Yeah,
helpful.
it didn't feel controlling.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So then it was, and I had told him a lot of the things that I felt shame about in that first period of time that we were together, when he still was this Prince Charming to me. And then all of a sudden, all of those things that I had disclosed to him started being used against me. So then it was starting to whittle down the little self-esteem that I had left
Okay.
of, you are, I don't know if I can say the word, but like, you're a slut, you're these things, you're those things. And no one's going to want to be with you except me,
Mhm.
which is so, like, now to look at, we were talking earlier, I have a niece that's that age now, and to think of someone saying those things to her, it's just heartbreaking. But at that time, it was almost like I needed to prove him wrong or prove myself wrong. And so I was going to follow his lead with things. And, then the anger starts coming out of, okay, if you're going to go see someone, how do I know that you're not going to do this again? And so then it was, my circle started getting a lot smaller. I was going to I had started at USC at the time, but it was, oh, I don't trust you to be in the dorms. So I don't want you staying there. So all of these things. And it happened slowly,
Mhm.
where it was like all of a sudden, then I looked up and I was like, I don't have anyone in my life anymore. But at the time, it just felt like I have to make this person happy because no one else is going to want to be with me. And I really had that belief.
Okay. So I really want to pull out 3 different really important data points that I want the listener to pay attention to,
Hmm.
because they're red flags. And you're absolutely right. They're in the playbook of sort of a controlling or emotionally abusive relationship. So the first is that you shared with him vulnerable information about yourself that was wrapped in shame or embarrassment. You trusted him, and he used that information against you. He weaponized that information and used it to control you,
Hmm.
to, require you to make your life smaller so that you didn't do those stupid things again. And he used that information to control you, right?
Yeah.
To make you feel small, and he played upon your shame and sort of exacerbated it rather than relieved it. And in a really good, healthy relationship, when you share something that you're ashamed of, the shame should feel release or
Yes.
relief.
Yeah.
But instead, it came back to haunt you even more because he weaponized it against you.
Yes. And then in every, fight that we would get into afterward, and the fight started getting intense,
Okay.
a lot of yelling, a lot of name calling. And, gaslighting, I feel like, is another word that's used probably too much now. But and I didn't know what that term was until I had been out of that relationship for years.
Okay.
But that was definitely happening too, where it started to be like, I remember he used to say, "You like fighting." And I'm like, I hate fighting. I'm such a non confrontational person. But I had started to believe that of, maybe I like this chaos. Maybe I like fighting and I like yelling. But I always remember feeling like I'm only doing this to defend myself, you know? So there was a lot of that, of twisting of reality, and these people are against you. They don't want us to be together. There was a very early on in the relationship, you don't talk about your relationship with other people, with your friends. That was something that, and again, the age gap thing, you've been in relationships, I haven't. Maybe you're not supposed to talk about your relationship with other people. And now, and my husband knows that anytime we get into an argument, at least 3 other people know because, and he just knows that's part of, that's how I deal with things.
Yeah.
But at the time I believed, okay, maybe he's right. Maybe you're not supposed to talk about your relationship. So no one knew the depths of how bad it was. And that made it worse because it made me feel even more isolated and alone than I already was.
Yes. So the second sort of red flag that I want to point out is that he took steps to isolate you from friends and family. He used your shame against you to encourage you not to stay in the dorms, to stay with him, which isolated you from your community. You were a freshman in college. You should have been building relationships, being in the dorm, having a great time, and he could have been a nice addition to your life. But instead, he made himself sort of the center of your life. And another way that he isolated you is he wouldn't permit you to speak about the relationship with other people, which keeps you from hearing other people's perspectives and reflections. And so these are tactics of control, tactics of isolation, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And he knew what he was doing was not right. And so he knew that if I talked to anyone, they would
You
say,
would find out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then a third tactic that he used is, you described it perfectly. It's really gaslighting. And gaslighting is when you turn something around to make a person feel like they're crazy when in fact they're really just seeing the truth, right? Gaslighting is not the same thing as disagreeing.
No.
Gaslighting is not the same thing as having a conflict. It's when you see the truth about something and you speak it out loud and the other person manages to turn it around and accuses you of being crazy when in fact you are right.
And it also is a very slow burn. It's not just an argument that happens once. It's something that happens slowly over time where I feel like it really did happen over time where all of a sudden it was, oh, I trust everything this person says.
Yeah.
Where that is not the kind of person that I was before that relationship.
Yeah. You and I were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, and I shared with you that when I was young, I was also in a relationship with someone who was much older than me. And I was reflecting back on like what a difficult position my parents must have been in.
Yeah.
Right. Can you tell us a little bit about how did your parents react to all of this? What do you remember now with hindsight?
Yeah. And I've had the opportunity now to talk to them about it. And I think they realized it was probably a lose-lose situation of if we push back on this, then we're going to lose you. Yeah. And we don't want to do that. So we're going to do whatever we can to, I guess, because I think they also saw that I was losing so many of my friends. And so they thought, okay, we want to be the lifeline without telling me. And I also think the control that he had me under did really reduce my drinking. And I think my mom knew probably when I was 17 that it was a really big problem.
Okay.
And she had a lot of fear of me living at USC,
Understandably.
Yeah. And so I think she was in this position where it was, this is not a good relationship, but she's also safe from dying of alcohol poisoning. So I think it was this position of, I guess I'm going to choose the lesser of two evils. And that's something that I can look back now because I carried a lot of shame for a while of missing out on the college experience that was so important to me when I was picking colleges. And I did realize, yes, it put me through a lot of trauma and pain, but I think it also was this protective element of it could have gotten so much worse when I was there.
Yeah. You describe yourself as an 18-year-old who had low self-esteem and a drinking problem.
Yeah.
Now you have all these years of sobriety behind you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Such a huge accomplishment. You know, you were in a vulnerable position, and I can really see why this relationship was appealing to you, someone to take care of you and guide you. But how do you understand now your problems with self-esteem and drinking so young in your life?
Yeah, I no, it's a really good question. And I've done, and it's interesting because neither of my parents are big. My dad has not drank since he was like maybe in college. So
Uh-huh.
I didn't grow up in this alcoholic house
It
that was
wasn't
chaotic.
modeled
It
for
was not
you.
modeled for me. It
Yeah.
was not chaotic. I think my understanding is there's definitely a genetic element, but then also when I was 16, I went through a sexual assault that I didn't tell anyone about because I felt like it was my fault. And I think that was, now that I look back, that's when it really took off. And I think that was the catalyst. I forget who says it, but some people, there's someone that says genetics load the trigger and trauma usually pulls the trigger on an addiction. And I think that's what happened. And that was one of the things that I had disclosed to him. And he did reinforce this idea that it was my fault and you put yourself in this position. So I think that was, and now I've done years of trauma therapy and I've, opened up about this, and I feel, I've told my parents about it and it feels, okay now, but I think that was something that really expedited the whole thing. And what I had learned in therapy was when people go through an assault, they either, shy away from sex or they turn towards like this promiscuity phase, which that's what I did. And so that, again, that further reinforced to me that I'm in control of this. I'm the
I
one that
choose
I
this.
choose this.
Yeah.
And so that, I think that was really that's what sped it up.
Yeah. My heart just, it really breaks for you to hear that this vulnerable time in your life and that you were the victim of this sexual assault was turned around and used against you. It really creates more depth to you sharing with us that he called you a slut.
Yes.
And really, I mean, I just feel that like a knife in my stomach as I say it. It's a
Yeah.
horrible thing.
Yeah, it was horrible. And again, there was a gap of me telling him that this happened. And then all of a sudden it was, 6 months later, then it's being used against me. And it took me until getting sober to open up to anyone else besides him about this. And I didn't tell my mom that it had happened until I was 27. So it had been like
Wow.
10 years.
Wow.
And I had to do it with my therapist there because it was such a scary thing. So it really did stunt my healing from that experience because, I did tell this one person and it went so bad.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm so sorry that that happened to
Thank
you.
you.
The many layers of betrayal, not just the assault, but everything that came afterward and how you betrayed yourself
Yeah.
as a way to try to get control over your sexuality in your life,
Yeah.
and then how it was used against you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Was there like a turning point for you where you started seeing, oh my gosh, this isn't right for me?
And I actually remember we were living together and I remember looking up on Google, is my relationship abusive?
Wow.
Which I will tell you, if you
Wow.
have to Google it, it's probably true. And what's interesting is I can look back now and all of these things that happened while they were horrible, they all kind of fed into it finally getting better. So what I mean by that is the turning point for me in that relationship was my family. We have a reunion in northern Wisconsin every year.
Mm.
And I had brought my boyfriend, and there was one night where me and my siblings were drinking, and I drank way too much. And my partner, my boyfriend was asleep, and I just told my siblings what was happening. I
Mm.
just I exploded basically. And it was the first time that I had ever heard myself say it out loud.
Yeah.
And it was, which is crazy. It was just enough perspective for me to be like, this is not okay.
Yeah.
And I'm such a people pleaser too, where I was like, if they know, I can't stay,
It's going to hold me accountable.
It's going to hold me accountable.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the beginning of the end of that relationship. And I will tell you, it took about another year or more to really disconnect from him.
Yeah.
We had a couple like attempted breakups, and then we did break up, but he still called on me. So it took a while to fully disconnect. But I think my drinking actually helped me in that regard.
Yes.
And I think the relationship ultimately helped me get sober early on. And I think the assault helped me get sober early on, because I see a lot of people, they don't get sober till they're in their 40s, and it takes that long to take effect. And now I look back and I'm so grateful that I had, I guess, this expedited rock bottom, that I was able to get it early.
Yeah. The most painful things that happen to us can also be the catalyst for our growth.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I love so much about your platform and your Breakup Bestie is like, you really do help people see that in every relationship, in every loss, there is a major lesson to be learned that can transform your life if you are willing to see it through new eyes. And if you never confront the grief of what you've lost, you can never get through to the other side to see what you have gained.
Exactly. Yes.
Talk with us about your grief in your breakup. I just can only imagine how hard this must have been for you as someone so young with a substance use problem, having been so isolated from your friends. It took a tremendous amount of courage to follow through with this.
Yeah. Yeah. I thank you. Like I said, we broke up, but we still stayed in contact, and I was still so full of shame. I had a really hard time going back to old friends and saying, because I will say a lot of my friendships had already been fractured before this relationship because of my drinking. And so I moved to San Clemente. I lived at my brother's house, and I really just tried to start over, but I was so in my substance use disorder that it only got worse from there. But it was better in the fact that I wasn't with this person. But so I would say I didn't actually go through the grief of the relationship until I had probably 2 years sober. And what had happened was I finally got sober. And actually, the day after I got sober was the last time I saw my ex-partner. So it all really lines up.
Wow. What was the last time that you saw him? I'm sure you remember this
I remember it very vividly. So another element to this is, it's so funny now because looking back, I saw this person as this adult that was going to take care of me. Meanwhile, I was supporting him financially for most of our relationship.
The irony.
An
18-year-old.
Yeah. So I was like taking money out of money that my grandparents had set aside for me. It was really twisted.
Wow.
And one of the things that was still connecting us was we had gotten a car that was in my name because he had no credit. And he still had the car.
Okay.
Even after, a year and a half after we broke up. And I had gotten a call from him. I had like 36 hours of sobriety. And he said, the car got impounded. I need you to drive out to Rancho Cucamonga, which is like an hour and a half away. And I need you to, get my car out of impound. And I was in like an outpatient treatment program at the time, and we would do group therapy. And I opened up about it. And there was this older guy in my group, and he said, "What are you doing? You can't do this." And
how old are you at this point?
I'm 21.
Baby.
Yeah, a baby. Yes, a baby. And I just got this, I don't know if I was running on adrenaline or what, but I drove out to get the car out of impound. I brought my cousin with me, and we're at the impound lot. I get it released, and I look at him and I say, "I'm taking the car." And it was the first time where I was like, "No, I'm not doing this anymore." And
This is so powerful.
it was
I'm taking the car.
I'm taking the car.
It's a symbol for you taking back your life.
Mm-hmm. So I said, I'm taking the car.
Yeah.
And he said, can you at least drop me off in Orange County? So I drove an hour and a half with him in the car. He's crying. He's making suicidal threats.
Wow.
And I just was, I don't know, I had tunnel vision and I dropped him off. I took the car and we never talked again.
I'm speechless.
Yeah. And you know what's the icing on the cake is I told him that I was in rehab and he said, I always knew you were an alcoholic. The icing on the cake. So yeah, so my sobriety day is January 7th in 2013 and January 8th was the last time I ever saw him.
Wow. I love that the proximity of those two dates, like 7 and 8.
Yeah.
That is very powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I had such a reaction when you were telling this story because, you know, my belief system, to me, what I see is like a divine entity with you in that car, like God really giving you the grace and the strength to drive that car to Orange County and say goodbye. I'm wondering how you see it because something came over you there.
There's so many things in those, like that 3-day period that are completely inexplicable to me now of how all of the things lined up that allowed me to, you know, within 3 days, admit to my parents that I was an alcoholic, that I wanted to get help, to somehow find myself in an AA meeting, to all of these things happened so quickly. And you know what's so interesting to tie it to the work that I do now is I have anecdotally, I always felt there was a connection between getting sober and going through a breakup. And, you know, now that I have my podcast and I've been able to interview so many experts on it, there are so many similarities.
100%, starting with withdrawal.
And there is this thing that I try to talk about with a breakup where I call it, you have these breakup guts of, I'm going to do the thing that I know is hard, but I'm running on adrenaline. I don't know which way is up.
Yeah.
But I do think we get these windows of opportunity, these, you know, windows of willingness. Yeah. And it's like, are we going to step through that?
Yes. You get a call.
Yes.
And are you going to answer the call?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, in sobriety, in breakups, in life, we get these turning points that we don't realize are turning points at the time, but then we look back and we think, wow, if I hadn't gone that way, if I hadn't decided that day, I'm going to go take the car, what would have happened? Or if I, you know, bailed on a friend offering to take me to an AA meeting, what would have happened?
Yes.
But we do get these things.
Crossroads.
We get these crossroads. And I think I feel really lucky that I took a lot of the right paths with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. It sounds like an incredibly dynamic period of your life, these few days.
Yes.
Where you had a call to something transformative and a totally different path in your life that you chose to take.
Yeah.
That's an amazing story.
Thank you.
And I love the finality of, and you never saw him again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say I still probably about once a year, I Google his name and I see he always was someone that never had social media. And there was always this fear of, I don't know where he is.
Yeah.
So I will say it's still once a year. And I tell my husband now, I'm like, I got my yearly weird thing where I Googled him. And so,
I don't think that's weird at all.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that you're saying this because I think every person out there is breathing a sigh of relief at hearing someone admit that they Google a long ago ex that had a tremendous, painful impact on their life.
Yes.
Because I do the same thing.
I think we all do. It's like curiosity. And people will say, I'm so nervous my ex is going to forget me with a breakup. And I
Oh,
always think, I say, I can remember the first and last name and birthday of my 7th grade boyfriend that I had for probably 6 days. You know, we
wow.
don't
Wow.
forget people
Yeah.
like that. And
Yeah.
I think that has really helped me see what is it actually like to go through a breakup, because it's not this, you know, eternal sunshine of the spotless mind where they're just erased from your brain. That would be
Right.
nice. I
Right.
mean, I guess in some ways it would be nice, in some ways not. But yeah, I think that has helped take off a lot of the shame with that, is like,
Yeah.
no, I still look at exes I still look them up, and it's not because I want to be with them,
Right.
but you know, my body
Yeah.
remembers it.
Your body remembers it. What do you get from the lookup, finding out what it is they're doing? Like, what do you get from it?
I think it depends on honestly, I think sometimes it depends on the day. I think sometimes it's this, wow, this was such a horrible person to me that I want to make sure they, you know, aren't out there living this like, beautiful, you know, and
Yeah.
that's, if I'm being honest, that's sometimes what it is, of
Yeah.
like, I hope you get what's coming to you.
Yeah. Totally.
Sometimes I think I still have this thing of, I'm going to run into him. I haven't seen him in 13 and a half
Yeah.
years, but I still sometimes have the fear of, what if I run into him?
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's like, maybe I should know what state he's living in. So I
Yeah.
think sometimes it's that.
Sometimes, and I would call that like hypervigilance.
Yes.
Right? There's a
Yeah.
trauma and you want to be aware of what risk you're at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think there's also times where I think we get in these reflective states where it's, sometimes I want to be put back into what it was like,
Yeah.
because I'm so far removed from that now, and I have
Yeah.
such a different life. So sometimes it's like, I want to see how far back or how far I've come
Yeah.
from that. So
Yeah.
I think it kind of depends on the mood I'm
Oh,
in that day. Yeah.
that makes total sense. Thank you for sharing that. I think
Yeah.
it's very complex
Yeah.
and very authentic. That depending where you're at, you're getting something different from it.
Yes.
Yeah. So you really, you know, you have made this beautiful and purposeful career out of helping people through breakups. You know, you were going through a breakup and getting sober really kind of at the same time. Because even though you had broken up previously,
Yeah.
the nail wasn't really in the coffin until
No.
that day when you took back your car.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Tell us
Yeah.
about how you experienced the breakup and getting sober. What was it like for you? What helped you?
So I went through a couple relationships in early sobriety with people that were emotionally unavailable. And I became like this friends with benefits that would be there for people. And it wasn't until I had, I guess, 2.5 years sober where I had really fallen for someone. They had told me they didn't want a relationship. I just kept hoping that it would change. And then finally they said, I know you want to get married someday. I can't give that to you, and I'm breaking up with you. And I think all of my relationship pain hit me right then. So that was the breakup of
Wow.
all breakups.
Wow.
And that was the catalyst for, I mean, everything was, but that was really the breakup that sparked Breakup Bestie eventually.
Wow. What a gift that person gave you. The gift of the truth.
Yeah.
The gift of goodbye. And I'm sure it didn't feel that way at that moment.
It didn't. Well, and here's the plot twist moment, is that person is now my husband. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think we're going to need a part 2.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go there. Can we go there?
Yeah, of course. Yes.
This is
I know. And I
great.
always I feel like I'm always so nervous sharing this part because I never want to give people false hope of but I will say, I mean, the long story short of it is he didn't want to get married or have kids.
Yeah.
We broke up.
Yeah.
We did not speak.
Yeah.
We did not see each other.
Yeah.
For 18 months.
Yeah.
Fully moved on. Never thought I would see this person again in my life. I was dating someone. That was the year I took that year and I went through however many breakups had piled up for me.
Yes.
And I was, I took every suggestion someone made about a book to read, do this journal assignment, go to this therapist. I was a sponge. I was like, I'm ready finally to figure this out.
Yeah.
And after a year, I had started dating someone again. Again, Luke was never on my mind. I mean, he was on my mind, but he wasn't. I never thought that
It
that
wasn't
would.
about hope.
There was no hope.
Yeah.
And
he was he gave you the gift of clarity.
Yes.
Yes.
And he never reached out to me. He never
Yeah.
never gave me any false hope, which
He wasn't dragging you along.
No, I'm
Right.
so thankful for that. And then 18 months later, we had a mutual friend's wedding, and this was going to be the first time that we were going to see each other. It was a totally fine time. I actually went up to him and I basically said, I appreciate that you told me the truth.
Yeah.
And, I am sorry that I tried to make you into something that you weren't. And so we had this really lovely, quick conversation. And then 3 weeks later, I got an email from him asking if I would be open to sitting down with him for coffee. Mm-hmm. He is also in 12 steps. So I thought he was going to make an amends to me. I thought so many things. And then we sat down at coffee and he basically said, I've taken this last year and a half. I haven't, I needed to be single. I needed to work, he did therapy. So he did all these things. And he said, I realize I do want to get married and I have realized that I want it to be with you.
Yeah.
Which was so shocking, was not what I had expected. I was in another relationship at the time.
Wow.
But what I learned is we were at Starbucks. I left Starbucks and I said, I don't know if you're going to hear from me. Mm-hmm. And I left it like that. And, I took the next 3 days and really talked to everyone, it's so different from the person that I was before. Like I wasn't jumping at, okay, I want to be with you. Yeah, yes, you're choosing me.
Yeah.
I took time and, and then we got back together and now we've been married for almost 8 years and have 3 kids.
Wow. Wow. And I totally hear you on you don't want to give people false hope.
Yes.
You coach people through their breakups and it is so important. I am totally aligned with you that you have to go no contact,
Mm-hmm.
But your story is your story.
Yeah.
And you're allowed to have a story that breaks convention and breaks the rules.
Yeah.
I love your story especially because I called off my wedding and then married the guy whose engagement I ended. And we have been married for 10 years and we have 2 children and he's the love of my life. And no questions asked, zero ambivalence about it, So there are stories that can break the paradigm and it can sometimes feel hard to share it because you don't want people to have false hope.
Yeah.
Right.
And I had to ask myself that because I didn't want to come off as fraudulent, but then I had to ask myself, it doesn't change any of the principles that I believe in when it comes to going through a breakup.
Yeah.
It doesn't change anything. I've never said that I never believe exes can get back together.
Right.
I've always said it's rare.
Yeah.
But I also stand by the fact that if I hadn't actually gone through that breakup, not just getting rid of him, but also taking that year to heal myself.
Yeah.
And you know what? I was a very different person when we got back together and it took some getting used to. He was like, oh, you're pushing back on things. Mm-hmm. You are stating your opinions on everything and you have boundaries now. Mm-hmm. And so we had to get to know each other and he had to go through that too. So we would not have made it work if we had a messy breakup, if we had stayed in contact, or if I had waited around for him, would have been such a different situation.
Yeah. Wow. This is such an amazing story. You really did the work. You walked the walk and talked the talk, and you did it all to get yourself through to the other side. I'm curious, you talk a little bit about, you have a niece that is now the age that you were when you went through this very painful relationship. Mm-hmm. And I think that's such a gift because it's a way to see yourself through a different lens. Like you can look at her, I'm sure, and see so much of you in her. If she were going through anything like what you went through, what would you say to her?
So I would just say this isn't all there is. There is whatever you like about this person, you can have that plus security, safety. I think I just didn't believe that. And I would also tell her, like, relationships don't have to take up this much of your mental capacity. This shouldn't be the only thing you think about.
Yes.
This should be something that adds to your life, not something that takes away from your life.
Yes. I was just talking to someone about this, that relationships shouldn't be always hard.
No.
Like, you can go through hard periods, and God knows we do, you know, but they shouldn't always feel like a slog, like you have to really dramatically change who you are in order for this relationship to work.
Yeah. It should be something that, and it should be something that when you're not with them, you don't need to think about them all the time. That used to be, I used to think about my relationships constantly. What are they doing? Where are they? All these things. And now it's like, oh, and I'll see my husband later and that'll be fine. And what a gift that is. I really never thought that was possible.
Yes.
So I think that's a big thing too, is like, relationships should feel safe.
Yeah. When you're preoccupied with something, and it makes it hard to like really be present in the rest of your life, that's a sign that there's something to pay attention to here, right? I'm not saying you need to break up your relationship, but I'm saying pay attention. Your preoccupation is probably coming from anxiety. And what is your anxiety coming from?
Yeah.
Anxiety is the brain's way of telling us, it's an alarm system that says something is wrong.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes that alarm system is too sensitive and it gets triggered too easily. And so we're anxious when we actually don't need to be. But sometimes that anxiety is an expression of our intuition, you know, telling us that there's something to take a look at here.
Yeah.
And I think an inquiry about that can be really helpful for people.
Yeah. And I've seen a lot of people write off emotionally unavailable partners because they're like, oh, I'm anxious.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, you can be anxious, but you also deserve to be with someone that makes you feel safe.
Safe. Exactly.
Like there's work to be done on both sides, but it can't all be you.
Yeah. One more question for you, Kendra. If you were to run into Rick today, is there anything that you would say to him?
It's so funny. The amount of times I've thought about this of, you know, what would I say? You know, it's part of me wants to say like, I would, you know, say I have no hard feelings. You know, my life is beautiful now. Honestly, I think what I would say is like, I hope you got help. Yeah. I hope you got help.
Yeah. And it sounds like there are like different parts of you that would want to say different things.
Yeah.
There's a part of you that wants to say like, I survived you and my life is beautiful.
Totally.
And there's a part of you that says, I hope you got help, which is, it's compassionate, but it's also an acknowledgement of the problem.
Yes.
Which you never got his acknowledgement.
Exactly.
Of the problem.
Yeah.
Or at least his part of the problem.
Yeah.
And you have taken a look at and owned your side of the street.
Yeah.
And how you were a part of the problem in that what you accepted for yourself was so much less than what you deserved.
Yeah.
And also you were so young.
Yeah.
And you didn't know better.
Exactly.
And now you know better.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's so many difficult things, at least I can say for me, that come with aging. Aging can be a really difficult process. But one of the beautiful things about it is having the experience to know better and the perspective to understand that there's something more out there.
Yeah. And the tools, like the toolbox of, okay, I can reach for different things when things are going on. Like that's another big thing that I have now that I didn't have back then.
Yeah. Thank you, Kendra Allen, for sharing your experience. I know that everyone's going to be going out and buying the Breakup Workbook. And I encourage listeners to check out your podcast too. We're going to include everything in the show notes. Thank you for your vulnerability and sharing your story. I know that there's so many people that are going to be impacted by it.
Thank you for having me and for giving me the ability to share this. And I hope it helps someone. So thank you.
I'm Dr. Molly Burritts. This is Kissing Frogs, and that's our time for today. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Kissing Frogs with Dr. Molly Burritts. I want to hear your thoughts on it, especially if you loved it. So please leave a comment on Spotify or rate and review the show on Apple. Don't forget to subscribe while you're there. And if you think that a friend would enjoy this podcast, please share the episode with them. That's the absolute best way to help the show grow. You can find me on socials at Kissing Frogs Pod and at Dr. Molly Burrets. That's DrMollybUrrets. See you next time.